Welcome to KC Cares, Kansas City's nonprofit voice. We're telling the stories of Kansas City nonprofits and the people behind them. KC Cares is the intersection of the nonprofit and profit communities, making Kansas City a better place to live, work, and play. KC Cares is proudly sponsored by the Ewing Marion Kauffman Foundation. I'm Ruth Baum-Biggis. Despite the challenges we face in the United States with healthcare, millions of people around the globe struggle for the very basics. Access and supplies top the needs list. Since 1987, one nonprofit has been helping change the medical balance sheet in more than 135 underdeveloped countries. It's Project C.U.R.E, delivering health and hope to the world. After it all began when one doctor traveled to South America as a consultant to the president of Brazil. What Dr. James Jackson saw during that visit inspired him to take action to improve things. And today, Jackson's son, Dr. Douglas Jackson, oversees the operation. And Kansas City and Kristen Robinson is part of the team as the city executive director and Franciscan Mission Warehouse guru. And we want to welcome Kristen to the show. It's so nice to have you on.
Hi, Ruth. Thanks for having me.
This is a huge organization, just remarkable. As I was preparing for today's show, all the things you do and how you do it. But I do want to take our audience back a little bit and give them the basics of what Project C.U.R.E is all about. Will you share that with us?
Sure. So Project C.U.R.E's mission is to identify, collect, sort, and deliver medical supplies and equipment to resource-limited countries. So we work with local hospitals in our region and take their excess medical supplies and equipment. So if they're turning over their hospital equipment to the latest and greatest model, they will give us their old piece of equipment, or if they have medical supplies that they no longer need or are in excess, they will then give those to us. And then we work with partners in countries all over the world who are in need of those supplies and send them 40-foot containers to help help them help the people in their countries have better healthcare, basically.
And this all started from Dr. Jackson's trip. I just think that's so interesting. Can you share with us a little bit about him and his background? To get to be a consultant to the president of Brazil is a pretty big deal.
Well, if I can, I would like to share a little bit about why. So you'll notice in our name we have Project C.U.R.E Franciscan Mission Warehouse. So that's unique to Kansas City. And so I'll share a little bit about why we have Franciscan Mission Warehouse in our name, and then we'll eventually get to the point of where Project C.U.R.E and their history comes into play.
Sounds great.
So the Franciscan Mission Warehouse was a ministry that was run by the Sisters of St. Francis of the Holy Eucharist. They are located in Independence, Missouri, and they started basically doing exactly what Project C.U.R.E does, just on a smaller scale. So they were shipping medical supplies and some equipment to the developing countries. Started doing that in 1995 after a group of the sisters were just finishing up a mission in Brazil. And when they came back to the States, the folks in Brazil said, please, if you can just send us. Actually, they wanted what their main request was Pepto-Bismol because they had a lot of stomach ailments. And so they just asked the sisters, can you please send us back some Pepto-Bismol if you can get your hands on some. So Sister Andrea Cantner was the one sort of championing that effort and started sending supplies down to their mission in Brazil. Then that grew over time. They were doing one big shipment a year. The word got out and they started sending, 2 or 3 shipping containers to other countries also. So from 1995 to 2019, Franciscan Mission Warehouse was up and running under the Sisters of St. Francis in Independence. They built a 10,000 square foot warehouse on the property where their convent is in Independence, and they were just quietly doing this ministry for all those years, and not very many people in Kansas City knew that was even happening. So then in 2018-19, it became apparent that, so the sisters there was a lot of things kind of up against what they were doing. There was only 13 sisters left. And that's in that order, 13 sisters left in the whole world of the Sisters of St. Francis of the Holy Eucharist. They were aging. So of the 13, they were in their 70s, 80s, a couple in their 90s. So that was getting difficult to continue to run the warehouse. Shipping regulations have increasingly become more challenging. And so they just didn't have the resources they need to continue on. And rather than, they either needed to find somebody to affiliate with that they could partner with, or the ministry was going to go away. And as you mentioned in the intro, the need is great around the world. And it just would have been a terrible thing if their ministry just stopped. So they sought out a partner and found Project C.U.R.E. Project C.U.R.E. is located in Denver, or they're headquartered in Denver. And the mission is pretty much identical to what Franciscan Mission Warehouse's mission was. So they joined together. And so then in summer of 2020, we actually moved from the property of the sisters to a new 54,000 square foot warehouse in the subtropolis in North Kansas City. And we are now the 7th Project C.U.R.E. distribution center. So that's a little bit of their history. And so does that answer your question a little bit on how?
Oh, I love that story. I didn't realize the depth behind that. What a special story. I'm blown away by the fact that, this was so quietly done. And we often hear about somebody or a group of people like the sisters who just do good.
Yes.
And, they're like a best kept secret.
Absolutely.
What a wonderful connection for Kansas City and to bring into Project C.U.R.E. So we're the 7th distribution center.
Yes. So there's seven distribution centers. So that the international headquarters is in Denver, and there's also a distribution center there. Then there's one in Phoenix, Houston, Nashville, Chicago, Philadelphia. And then we like to call ourselves here lucky number 7. So we have opened up and we're up and running. And it was interesting because we moved here to the new warehouse space right in the middle of COVID. So, which was okay. So it was the summer of 2020. The bummer part of it was that we weren't able to really have volunteers coming in, because we do have volunteers every day here. And so, but that allowed us to kind of get ourselves set up. And then we are now up and running full blast. And we're welcoming volunteer groups, and we have regular volunteers that come in every day and help us do our work.
Were you part of the actual connection with the sisters and Project C.U.R.E.?
So I actually was helping the sisters on a part-time basis as they were kind of working through this transition time. And so then, I worked with them, like I said, part-time, and the things that they needed as they identified Project C.U.R.E. as a partner, and then helped through that transition, and then opening up the new warehouse. And then the executive director position came open, and it felt like a perfect fit. So I am here full-time now.
Well, congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Are any of the sisters still involved?
So Sister Andrea, who was the one who really was running the day-to-day of the Franciscan Mission Warehouse, she is on our ambassador board here and still very active. I talk to her many times a week, and she's still out there making connections for us. And so we're so grateful to her.
Well, we're talking with Kristen Robinson of Project C.U.R.E. / Franciscan
Mission Warehouse.
So kept that name in there, and that's wonderful.
We did. Yeah.
Share with us a little bit about how this works in Kansas City. Let's get down to the lucky number 7.
Sure. So there's a couple. So there's sort of like 3 key things that make our warehouse run and allow us to do our work. The first thing is we need volunteers. So we have connections with local and regional hospitals. And then finally, we have funding that helps us actually ship the items or ship the containers. So there's fundraising and things that go along with that. So kind of if you start to finish, we have established relationships with places like KU-Med, the HCA hospitals here in town, Olathe Medical Center, North Kansas City Hospital, Children's Mercy, all of the big hospitals. We have met with them, and then we have now a relationship where they are sending us we go do pickups and pick up their supplies and equipment. So those all of that gets brought into our warehouse. And then we have volunteers who help us sort, package. We have regular volunteers who help us with, loading the containers. And so that's kind of how that piece of it works. And then part of my job is to actually work with when we have requests come in for help. Sometimes I get people here in Kansas City who might be from one of the countries in which we work. For example, I'm working with a gentleman right now who is from Ethiopia, and his mission in life is to give back to where he came from in Ethiopia, and he's wanting to, sponsor and get a shipment to his home country. So I then work with him to identify the facilities in the country that need the help. We partner up with those folks. And one thing that Project C.U.R.E does really well is it's called a needs assessment, where during non-COVID times, we would actually send a trained assessor to the country, to the facility that we are supporting. They would meet with the doctors and the nurses there, identify what their needs are, and together come up with kind of a packing list of what they want on their container. Then the assessor comes back, writes up a report. And then once the funding is available to send that container, then our inventory, logistics folks look at all 7 of the warehouses, see which one of the warehouses has the majority of the items on that packing list. And then that's where it gets shipped from. So a cool part of my job is just being able to work with the people in the countries in which we work, seeing what their challenges are, and then being able to hopefully help them meet those challenges with our shipments of medical supplies.
So you are on the internet a lot.
I am.
And talking to different time zones all over the world.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. I really feel like this is a privilege of a job, to be honest. So yeah, we work with, and right now, like because of COVID, a lot has been done by Zoom. And so our assessments are actually done via Zoom now. And in some countries we are sending people, depending on where it is, it just kind of depends. But most everything is done by Zoom at this point. And then, yeah, it's wonderful because we get to meet people, and like you said, address the challenges that they have and be able to support them in what they need.
Well, you mentioned the pandemic, and I know you rely on volunteers to help once you get all the good stuff in.
Yeah.
And yet you were also dealing with healthcare facilities that, of course, have been majorly locked down and limited.
Right.
How is that? And then you came together in pandemic time. Tell us how you've been able to operate and still get things to people who need it most.
So during, the height of COVID, yes, it was a challenge because we have, organization-wide all over the country, thousands and thousands of volunteers who support us and do allow us and help us do our work. We can't do our work without our volunteers. And so that was pared down significantly. But, we had in all of our warehouses, we had a few volunteers, regardless of the pandemic, who insisted upon coming in and helping so we could continue to do our work. Project C.U.R.E also pivoted a little bit during that time. We had warehouses full of PPE that the hospitals had given to us. And then we were in a situation where the hospitals needed that PPE, because they were running out due to COVID and during that crisis. So we actually then pivoted some of our work and support and sent that PPE back to the hospitals who were in need, particularly in rural areas. And so we did, thousands and thousands of dollars worth of PPE given back to domestic hospitals here. So we did that for, during the peak times of COVID. We were still doing our usual work during that time. We weren't doing as much just because of the challenges that were brought, of COVID, but we're back full bore now and back to 100% focusing internationally now.
Can you share with us, is there a container in process right now in Kansas City, and where is it headed? Or maybe there are several things you're working on right now.
Sure. So we probably ship, right now we're looking at one container a week about that gets sent out of this location. One specifically that I'm personally working on is one that's heading to the Philippines. They are still dealing with COVID, and the hospital that we're supporting there is out of beds. They don't have enough bed space to see for all the patients that they're getting in with COVID. We actually have lots and lots of emergency relief beds. So C.U.R.E, which is a hospital bed manufacturer, during COVID produced thousands of these emergency relief beds meant for the U.S. if they were needed here, if we were going to be needing to do some of the tent hospitals, to expand our hospitals. So they produced lots and lots of these beds, and not all of them were needed, but thank goodness here. So C.U.R.E donated 24,500 beds to Project C.U.R.E during that time. And we have here in Kansas City, probably at this point have 5,000 of those beds and mattresses left. And they're great for the countries in which we work because they don't require electricity. They're just a basic bed frame that has a manual, up and down. It has an IV pole. They're on wheels, and then they can lock, and they're low to the ground. So not a lot of bells and whistles, but perfect for where we're sending them. So this hospital in the Philippines, they are getting a full bed shipment, meaning that there's 100 beds and 100 mattresses on that container. And that's where it's headed, hopefully within the next couple of weeks. So that's what I'm working on personally here.
Did you ever think you'd be like a warehouse manager?
No. Well, and you know what? So it's not just me. So we have an operations director. Her name's Isabel Woodrum. So she is my partner in crime here. And she manages our warehouse, everything that warehouse operations related, all the shipments, getting things. And then she also manages all of our volunteers and booking volunteer groups, training the volunteers when they come in. So she's the one who really is the expert at warehouse operations. I've just absorbed some of it, being through osmosis.
Well, you mentioned you need volunteers. What's the best way if someone's interested in connecting with you in volunteering?
So if you go to projectcure.org, there's a button on there that actually you can look for our location, our Kansas City location, and then there's buttons on there that you can sign up to volunteer. And there's a description of the different types of volunteers that we need, because we host big groups, we host individuals, 2 or 3 people. It really depends. And we have things that anyone can do. You don't have to have a medical background. But we do have a lot of medical type people come. So we have a lot of nurses that come, and the types of work that we have them do are more specialized in, identifying and sorting at a more granular level, the equipment and supplies. But then we have high school kids who come and help us with just main big time, the big sorting categories, nothing super specific. So really, there's something for everyone who comes to volunteer.
Well, it sounds like a great opportunity. Once you have this container all filled up for the Philippines,
yeah,
how long is it going to take it to get there? We've heard about backlogs so much in shipping.
Yes. So there is, as it is all over the news, there is big logistics challenges right now in the U.S. and worldwide. So that has slowed things down a little bit for us. And really, we just have to be very flexible because often when containers are said that they're going to be delivered here for packing, they may not show up that day. They may be 2 days late. They may be, a week late. It just kind of depends. So yes, there are some challenges with that. But once the container leaves here, it gets put on the railway. It heads to one of the ports in the U.S. and then gets put on an ocean, a big ocean liner. And then depending on where in the world it's going, it could take anywhere from a month to 2 months to get to the port that it's arriving in.
But I'm sure it's appreciated when it gets there.
Oh, yes.
It's so needed.
Yes. And we get, so part of when we are working with our partners, they, one of the things that they provide us back is photos when it arrives, photos of it being unpacked. Oftentimes, depending on where it's going, if it's, a lot of places that are more like a village type town, the whole town will come out and help unload the container. And it's really heartwarming to see those pictures.
What are kind of the biggest challenges you're facing right now? And how could maybe the community help?
Sure. So, right now here in Kansas City, I think because we are new to Kansas City, obviously Project C.U.R.E is not a new organization, but we are new here in KC. So a lot of people don't know that we're here. And so really part of my job is to get the word out. And so we are in need of volunteers. That is one big challenge, just letting people know that they have the option and that we are a new nonprofit here in town that they can come volunteer at. And then there's always, we always need funding to help fund the containers that we send. And it costs about $25,000 to $28,000 to ship a 40-foot container. And there's usually anywhere between $350,000 to $400,000 worth of medical supplies and equipment in those containers. So, that's another piece of it, that if sometimes we have, multiple donors who band together to sponsor a shipment, or sometimes we have different entities, whether it's an organization or a church or another nonprofit who's working in the countries in which we work, who would fund an entire container. So it varies, but those are probably the two biggest needs we have now here in town.
Is it tough to get hospital systems to cough up even their old stuff? It's expensive, equipment.
It is. We have had a great reception here when we've been meeting with the hospitals. And sometimes if they can't give us all, say if they have, a huge amount of beds, say hospital beds that they're turning over, and they aren't able to give them all to us, we work with them and they just give us some. So, but they have been really great. Now that they know we're here, I think it's almost a relief to them to know that they have something they can do with them and feel good about it.
Well, that's what KC Cares is all about. We're creating that awareness. We get to share wonderful stories like this. Any story that's popped out for you in the time that you've been with the overall organization? Is there any one that kind of just is that aha moment and stands out for you that you could share with us?
Yeah. So right now, another project that I'm working on is with a group in Tyre, Lebanon. And they are a Christian church in Tyre that is well known in the region. They have a small little clinic that they treat, a lot of local people, but then they also have a lot of refugees that they are seeing there. And they were able to purchase a large empty hospital in their area that's been sitting empty for 20 years. It was built, and then a war broke out in the region, and it was never got up and running. So it's just been sitting empty. So this church in Tyre got permission from the government to purchase the hospital, and now they are working with us and to help outfit, basically get them all the equipment and supplies that they need. Obviously, that region of the world is a challenging place to live, and I've had the opportunity to talk with our partners there and listen to, what they're dealing with. And the people in that region have to drive up to 2 hours to the nearest, hospital facility. So obviously, if there's an emergency, it's a tough thing to get to the hospital in a timely manner. And this new hospital will be, it will serve like up to 200,000 people. So that project has been, to see what a huge impact something like that will have in their region and in their community, something that we take for granted here so much, where we can literally drive, 10 minutes away and we're at the emergency room if we need it. So just knowing that will make a huge difference. And that's been a pretty cool one for me to work on. And we were able to raise the funds needed for the first container. And then hopefully they're going to be, kind of stair-stepping their way up to with the different services that they are going to offer at that hospital to like they're going to have a pediatric ward. They're going to do maternity care. So it's pretty cool.
What a wonderful thing to do. And what an interesting part of the world to have to maneuver when there's so many parties that unfortunately hate each other and don't see the greater good of humanity.
Right. So, that's true.
We are so grateful that we could spend this time with you, Kristen, with the Project C.U.R.E. Franciscan Mission Warehouse. There is a direct Kansas City connection here.
There is, yeah.
We just encourage our audience to check you out if they can help, if they can become involved or engaged, spread the word. We just are so glad we had this time. And check out projectcure.org and make sure you go to the link for Kansas City.
Yes. Yep. That would be great. Thank you.
Thanks again. And we want to thank you for listening to KC Cares. Kansas City's nonprofit voice. We're produced by Charitable Communication, and we're proudly sponsored by the Ewing Marion Kaufman Foundation. If you'd like to be a guest like Kristen on KC Cares or underwriting opportunities to support our work, please visit our website at kccaresonline.org and spread the love. And you'll find us on Facebook and Twitter at KC Cares Radio and on Instagram at KC Cares Online. You also can catch us on ESPN 1510 AM and 94.5 FM Saturday mornings at 8 a.m. Thank you for joining us on KC Cares.